All right, and we are live. All right, Joseph Varghese here, rulesforsuccess.com. I'm here with a buddy of mine, someone I've gotten to know for the past 10 plus years at this stage, Amish Shah. Amish is an all-around kick-ass entrepreneur, someone who's very health-oriented, somebody I've come to respect a lot over the years, and he lives in over a decade now. He lives in. Are you still in La Jolla? Is that right?
No, I'm in Carlsbad and San Diego
San
for
Diego.
the broader term of San Diego. Yeah.
Awesome, my friend. Awesome. Like I had a chance to work with Amish going back about a decade ago. It was an awesome experience. Even going back before that, I got into the marketing space, online marketing world, entrepreneur world 20 years ago.
Mm.
And on that journey, people had mentioned that, hey, you should check out Amish. You guys have similar backgrounds. Be a cool person to connect with. And I think I manifested working with you back around
Mm-hmm.
2013, 2014, around that time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we found out that we do have a bunch of cool things in common. We went to engineering
Mm-hmm.
school, we have a passion for
Mm-hmm.
health, a lot of cool things. Well, brother, let me honor you and give a little bit of your bio here too for the audience. Of course, people may not realize how incredibly accomplished you are as an entrepreneur, as a leader. You've been on the Inc. 500. You've built so many extraordinary things, just going back 20 plus years. Um, you're so Amish. He's been a successful entrepreneur. Started at a young age, built a lot of success, millions in his 20s. But as things
Mm-hmm.
progressed, he encountered some significant health challenges, which led him to study the ancient sciences, specifically Ayurveda, and he established a company called Deep Origins. He's been featured on Discovery Channel, Travel Channel, Gia, Dr. Oz, Virgin Unite, and many other places. And the thing he's passionate about now, after building all this success with multiple businesses, projects, businesses he sold, is a documentary that he got released recently called thenaturalllaw.com, the natural law, thenaturalllaw.com. He's someone I've come to respect a lot over the years, just seeing his trajectory, his choices. In a lot of ways, I've come to model a lot of that too from having worked with him about a decade ago. It's really cool knowing my friend. Well, let's talk. So let's let the
Yeah.
audience know how did
Thanks.
you,
Thanks.
yeah, brother, how did you get on this journey? So it's like 20 some years now be, uh,
Yeah.
being, yeah, talk to us.
Yeah. I think I'll kind of start like early as like childhood. I was like grew up as first generation Indian American. My parents were from India. They moved to America in 1978 or something, and then I was born in New Jersey. So I was like this Indian kid in America trying to figure out like, wait, am I Indian or like American? Am I baseball or like these rituals or like, like what am I what is going on? So that was a lot of my upbringing. And so it was like always like you're not gonna struggle, you're gonna find success, you're gonna, it's like an entrepreneur, like that was always kind of built into me. Like you can become anything you want in this country. And so I remember growing up, and while I was growing up, I would actually get symptoms of these, like runny, bloody noses and headaches as a kid and stomach aches. And I'd go to the doctor, and the doctor would be like, okay, well, here's some Pepto Bismol, here's some stuff for your eczema. Like, off you go. You're just a little kid, don't worry about it. And I remember that. And, I was always interested in like making money and entrepreneurship, starting businesses. And that was just a piece of me. It was part of this like American dream.
Working on Wall Street.
And yeah, I worked on Wall Street for a while, and I realized at some point, like, okay, I can do Wall Street stuff for a while. I can do, what I'm doing in these companies and work my way up the corporate ladder, but I need more faster. You've probably heard that before. I need it now, and I need more of it. Like,
Yeah,
so,
especially in your 20s, right? Especially back.
especially in your 20s, yes. So I started to tinker online. This is in like early 2000s, 2001, two. Um, And I knew that this was like a huge wave. I was interested in computers since I was like a teenager. In fact, I got caught hacking once, and that was pretty serious. And I was only 16, but I was always interested. I was always like doing something, like trying to figure out stuff. So I decided to kind of use that hacking power for good. Like, hey, how do I use this to provide value, make money. Like, how do I build a business online? And so I found a very easy model in the early 2000s, something called affiliate marketing. And so affiliate marketing was, I was working through a broker to get deals from Netflix and eBay where they would pay me $35 per sign up to their services, to their platforms. And Netflix was a little lower, maybe like $20 at the time. And so I set up all these websites. I remember teaching myself how to code, how to do graphics, like everything. I was like, all right, just get it up and build a freaking website. And then I started doing SEO, like getting traffic to the websites through Google search, because Google search was massive back then, still is. But it was
Yes.
like the only place where you could find things back then. And so I started doing that. And then that led me to paid ads. And then from paid ads, I was driving them to my pages on movies and shows I've never seen before, like Lost season 2. And I've never even watched a season of Lost, but I put up a website about it and put Netflix banners and eBay banners all over it so that people would eventually click through. And
I
it
love
started
that.
paying off actually. It started off as like $5 a day, $10 a day, $15 a day. I own like a site on Beyonce. I don't even know, like so many different websites, like just trying to find niches of things to where I can drive traffic to. And so I did that. And so, for about 2 years, I was tinkering, still working my full time job. And then I found this one offer, one campaign that just was crushing it and brought me tens of thousands of dollars, like multiple thousands per day. And I'm like, what's going on? Like, I'm like going to my job, like looking at my like computer over here on the side, like I made more money today than I did like the whole month here. It's like,
Exactly.
yeah. And I was like, holy crap. And then boom, 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 it started compounding. And then, I told myself I wanted to be safe, to make sure that, again, bringing this immigrant side of my mind back in, it's like, well, be careful, make sure you have enough money in the bank, and then you can quit your job and ask your parents for permission.
Yes.
and
I
all,
complete follow all that logic completely.
yeah.
Yes.
So then I was like, okay, ask my parents for permission to quit my job to start my own business, because I made 3 times my salary in the last 6 months. Like, why would I continue working this full-time job? And so I continued to do that. And while I was doing that, I was building a piece of software because my campaigns had become so hard to manage myself. And in spreadsheets, I needed someone to build me software where I could just upload the data and then it would start making software. Or I would hire a programmer to start giving me the solutions printed out on a piece of software instead of me downloading everything and putting it into a database and analyzing it. Just too
Was
much
was
work for.
was that called arbitrage something? Was that what it was called?
So arbitrage was a piece of it, yes, and but mostly it was mixed with, I was doing arbitrage and affiliate marketing,
Yes. Yes.
a little bit of both. Where arbitrage is basically buying traffic from Yahoo and then selling it on a website with like AdSense ads. But I wasn't driving AdSense ads; I was driving like eBay ads or Netflix, like very specific around what that website's about, basically. So I got really good at it, and then eventually I needed software to manage all of this stuff, because I needed to change my bids, and it was just a different game back then in advertising.
Yes.
And I started buying ads on MySpace too, and I started buying, if you remember the ringtones, what ringtones were from a long time ago. Before these things, before the smartphones, there was these Nokia phones where you had to download the ringtones if you wanted new ringtones.
Yes.
And I sold ringtones, someone else's product, on MySpace, and so those kinds of things worked back in the day. And there
This
was
is way old school. This is way
This
back in
is
the
old
days.
school, yeah.
Yeah.
This is in the mid 2000s, 2002 to 2006 ish is the range. Then Facebook and YouTube and all these other things started getting bigger too. And so then I just continued to do that. I was using YouTube, creating media, creating a lot of content, and getting the word out there for my different campaigns and products and stuff I was selling. And so then that led me to basically say, well, wow, I built like this huge, amazing piece of software. So by the time I quit my job in 2004, 2005 ish, by 2010, we were doing over $10 million a year. So it went from this small little company that was doing like me, like hacking away on my computer, just doing stuff, into a multi five, six, seven, eight. Like I'm watching this thing grow to like a $10 million company. I'm like, holy crap. And this is within 5 years.
Wow.
So I was living in Jersey City at the time and commuting to the city every single day. I quit my job and boom, it was like this rocket ship. And then eventually we ended up selling that software that we were using to manage our campaigns to the public market, to consumers, to business owners, basically. And we had a massive launch, $8.5 million in sales in the first year of launching this platform. It was just wild, and beyond 8 and a half, that was just software sales. We had auxiliary companies attached around it too. And I was living the high life. I went from Jersey City to La Jolla. I had a 6,000 square foot house in La Jolla with a pool on the roof and Maserati and a Ferrari and an Audi, and I thought I had everything. I remember sitting there in the shower of that La Jolla house overlooking the ocean with which the shower was probably half the size of this room that I'm in right now. And I'm like sitting there and I'm just walking around in the shower and it's like looking at the ocean. I remember grabbing my gut because I was just in so much pain. I was like, man, what is this pain? And my head was hurting and I was like so sad and depressed. And I remember just thinking like shit, like I just want to kill myself. It was like pretty sad actually. And I remember looking at my cars and I'm like, what the heck did I do all this for? And something just clicked and I was like, looked in the mirror and I'm like, my hair is thinning and like falling out. And I have a full head of hair. I was just saying at the time it was like really thinning. That's not why I'm wearing a hat, by the way. So, um, and like I had this huge bulge on my stomach and I had a migraine and I had this sinus infection, like chronic sinus infection. I'm like, man, I'm pretty sure because I feel like crap all the time.
Right.
And I was like, I'm gonna go to the doctor. So this is in 2010. I go to the doctor. Yeah, right around 2010. And my doctor gives me a blood test and gives me my results back. And I was 29/30 years old, and he tells me my cholesterol is 370.
Wow.
Now, normal range is between normal range. I'm going to put that in air quotes because we don't really know, but we can have an idea is between 180 and like 230, 240, basically. It's like normal. It's normal to be in that range. I was 370. I was the second highest in his office.
Incredible.
And he's like,
Wow.
I've never seen this before. And he wanted to give me pharmaceuticals and all these drugs. And I was telling him like I'm depressed all the time and like telling him how I feel and like, suicidal and like, I don't know what's going on. I feel just my head hurts, my stomach hurts. And so he's like, well, take this for your depression, take this for your cigarette addiction, and take this for your, um, whatever else. I forgot what I was
So
saying.
basically,
My stomach, my stomach.
a bunch of band-aids to deal with the situation versus.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I did for a little while, but I didn't take all of them at the same time. I just took like a little bit of them at different times. And I knew that's just not the path I wanted to take. I'm like, I'm 30 years old. Like, this can't be what my thing is, I was high cholesterol, not only high cholesterol, I was pre-diabetic and I had slightly increasing thyroid. And I'm like, I'm 30 years old. I'm pretty sure it's my lifestyle and the stress of my company.
Were you
Lifestyle was,
question? Were you married at this point? Because I know your wife also is medically inclined as
we
well.
got married in 2010. So this is when I'm just discovering all this stuff of what's going on in my body.
Got it.
And so I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to get my life together. Like, this is not cool. And a lot of stuff in my business just I was not feeling alignment with. So I was like, you know what? Sell the company. I still got this other business that I'm going to continue to run and break up with my business partner and just start over, do over. Like, look at my body. Like, I'm overweight and like, like what's going on with me? Like, this is not what I signed up for. Like, I'm supposed to be like me, not like disconnected from me. And so it took me about 2 years to kind of downsize everything, sell the companies off, break the relationship off with the business partner. And I brought him on when I came to San Diego, and I was like questioning, like, man, maybe I'm not even supposed to be in San Diego. It's like when I moved here, all the problems happened.
Hmm.
And I was questioning everything, all of existence, everything, why I was here, what my business was about. And so along that journey, over the next 2 to 3 years, I was getting, tests done. I was seeing a lot of specialists because I was exercising, I was green juicing. I was like, I'm gonna get healthy, I'm gonna eat healthy. I'm not gonna drink as much. I'm not gonna party as much. I'm not gonna smoke cigarettes. I'm gonna chill everything down. Bring the partying has to come to like, almost zero. And then we got married at the time, so it was the right time for me to chill and settle down too, while I kind of discover what my next thing is while I'm shutting these companies down.
Hmm.
So I did that for 2 years, and I started this other, company where I was like, you know what? I really love ancient wisdom. Like since I was a kid, everyone else was reading Tom Sawyer. I'm reading like how the pyramids were made. That's like how I was. That's how I was.
Yeah.
And I was just fascinated by all of the ancient culture stuff. And I was like, you know what? I only want to do what I love. Maybe that's my problem. I just don't love running campaigns and an affiliate network and a software platform. And we had like 5 different companies at the time, and each of them was like doing something else. And I'm trying to manage all of them. And we had like 50 employees. And it was like, I don't even know if this is what I really signed up for. The reason why I started my business was so that I can make more movies and make more music because that was
Mm.
my passion. So that I just had extra time, so I didn't have to go to my 2-hour freaking commute to New York and then 2 hour back. And I was on Wall Street, so I had to show up there, even though it was an 8 hour per day job. I had to be there for 9 to 10 hours.
Right.
And that's just the culture. That's just the culture over there. And then you go out for happy hour, and then you're not home till like 8 or 9 p.m. basically.
That's also what,
So
well, I'm sure that's what your colleagues are doing, to people you went to school with, and
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
that's just that's you
exactly.
follow the Indian tradition as far as succeeding on Wall Street and doing those things, and then here you
The
are
American
as an
side was
entrepreneur.
happy hours, having fun, forget it, it's the end of the day, and
Exactly.
So it was a piece of both of those cultures, and then yeah, so when that happened, I decided to kind of, like I said, push the reset button. I had MRIs done, CAT scans done, ultrasounds done, tons of blood work, and saw maybe a dozen specialists basically, and none of them could tell me what was wrong with me. They're like, nothing's wrong with you, and I'm like, well, why are my numbers like on and off and on and off and on and off? And I would see acupuncturists, and when I would go to them, I remember they'd put the needles in, and the needles would pop out of my skin because I was just so inflamed.
Wow. Mm.
Chiropractors couldn't figure out. I'm like, my back still hurts, and they're like, well, I don't know. Many years later, well, not many years, just a year or two later, I decided, I'm going to go back to my roots because I was meditating at the time, and I felt really grounded and whole in my meditation. Even if I was in pain, I would find some peace in meditation. And I was exercising and just getting healthier in general, but I still would have these bouts of sicknesses. Um, I didn't know where it was coming from, and I was like, no, the doctor's not going to help me anymore. I have to take matters into my own hand and kind of just listen to intuition. And the word Ayurveda kind of like popped into my mind. It's like, okay, I practice a little bit of yoga, I meditate already. And Ayurveda is an ancient science from India that my parents didn't know much about. They didn't really know much about it. I remember growing up with it in my food and some of my ailments. If I had a stomach ache, they'd give me like celery seeds and ghee. And if I had a sprained ankle, they'd put turmeric around
Mhm.
it. So it was like a very different approach than rather than putting Bengay and an ace bandage
Right.
around
Right.
it, or giving some Pepto Bismol. My parents would mix these things about it. But that was just stuff they learned from their parents and grandparents. And they didn't know how it worked. They just knew that these two things would help with this.
Yes.
So,
And I totally relate to that because I had some of those experiences too growing up, and
hmm
we had these funky chemicals, like the funky concoctions in the fridge, and every time I get sick, we'd have to inhale this thing with garlic and stuff and turmeric inside, and so I relate to some of those experiences you shared. So that's
yeah.
yeah. So
So
figuring out what works. So talk.
exactly. So I went back to that and I was like, this is going to solve my problems. So I started doing a documentary on Ayurveda because there was a bunch of blogs and stuff at the time, but there was no like video on it. There was no movie about it. And actually, what's funny is I made the movie and there's still no other movie on Ayurveda except for mine. And I was like, there's something about this medicine that I know is works. Like it's based in nature. It's based on coming back to nature and being whole. And so I was like, "Huh, there's really something to this. Let me learn more about it. Why isn't there a documentary?" There's tons of blogs. Deepak Chopra talks about it. Oprah Winfrey talks about it, and all these celebrities talk about it. Like, why? Why? How come no one teaches it? Or like really teaches it in a good format? Like meditation's out there, yoga's out there. Well, what about this healing science? So I'll give a little background to what Ayurveda is, so that the viewers and listeners um, may want to hear about.
Please, yes.
And it's over 5,000 years old. It came from the Indian subcontinent. And when people say, well, where's the scientific evidence? And I say, well, first of all, it passed the test of time. It's over 5,000 years old. And not only that, Indian subcontinent over the last 5,000 years, it was tested on billions of people,
Mm.
billions with a B. And the fact that they've cataloged over 10,000 plants, herbs, and shrubs, and then have over 25,000 recipes that take over, some of them up to 200 steps to make. That is not by accident of just some foo-foo, like, let's just stick this to this and put it over a fire and just let it sit there, and then we're going to use it for diabetes. And that's going to work. No, there was science to this. And so I was like, yeah, there is science to this. And so they talk about how Ayurveda has a very simple thing, and that is that we're made up of the five elements, all of us. And you're made up a different combination of the five elements. I'm made up of a different combination of the five elements. And those are space or empty space, what we think of as empty space, like right here, right? And then air, there's air going in our lungs, there's air moving in the atmosphere. Then there's fire. There's not only fire here when we cook things, but there's a big ball of fire in the sky, in case you haven't noticed, that kind of powers the planet. and Then there's water, right? We can't survive without water. We're the same amount of water as the earth, and there's water, huge oceans of water, and there's water on other planets. And water is a real thing. It exists everywhere. And then there's after water, there's earth.
Yeah.
And the earth element is anything that's sedentary, that has structure, that has, our bodies. Like, why aren't we just a puddle of water walking around everywhere, just like dripping everywhere? Well, because we have earth, we have structure to us. There's some physicalness to us. And same with skyscrapers. Why don't they just collapse? Well, there's some structure to it. So how come we can see planets in outer space? Well, because there's a structure to it. So that's the earth element. So these five elements combine in different combinations, and you're made up of some. Strawberries are made up of a different combination. I'm made up of a different combination. Monkeys are made up of different combinations. My dog is made up of different combinations of those elements, which then become who we are. And so when I started to think about this, I'm like, oh my God, that just makes so much sense. Like, yeah, what else are we made up of? And we can think of all these chemicals and the periodic table, but down to just five elements, it can tell you how the whole entire universe kind of works. And so what Ayurveda says is that when you're born with a certain constitution. That constitution is the combination of those five elements. And it's as we live our lives through environment, through society, through culture, through the food that we input, through the everything that we digest. And digestion in Ayurveda is not just through what you put in your mouth, but whatever you get through the five senses: hearing, smelling, tasting. We take all of that, we digest it, and that becomes who we are: our minds, our bodies, our experience of life.
Isn't there like a
And I was like,
seasonal? Isn't there a seasonal element to it also? The different seasons we have, for example, fall, summer, and
yep,
different foods
there's
for those seasons.
seasonalities to it, and then different elements are more prominent in different seasons. Like summer, fire makes sense. What do you need to do to cool down? So then you look at the things that help you cool down. All right, you look at more of the water element, you look at more of the things that are going to cool you down. So these elements also have characteristics, and that's what makes it so brilliant, is that when you start getting off balance, then you're like, oh well, this herb can help do this to this element, and it'll bring this one back in order. And so the elements then become in balance. And so then we start balancing these through the foods that we input, through the herbs that we take, through certain lifestyle practices of stress is a big one, for example, how to deal with stress, how you perceive stress. So all of these different little combinations of things. But the first starting point for Ayurveda is the gut.
Yeah.
Everything happens in the gut.
Yeah.
And so what does that look like? And so the gut and the mind are the two centers of where we need to cleanse for the most part. And we need to be more in alignment with the elements of how we work as human beings. And so I started to understand this as I'm interviewing all these different experts on Ayurveda. And this lasted me 5 years. I went on interview after interview, and I'm just like interviewing them and asking them about Ayurveda. And then after the interview was over, and I'm like, so if you were sick and you got migraines and you had stuffy noses and eczema patches and all these things, like, what would you do? And I started to incorporate what they would tell me into my lifestyle. And sure enough, I was feeling a little better. But what was interesting is that I was still actually getting worse over time.
Mm.
So I was feeling better, and I would have these bouts of amazing moments, and I was feeling better, but I wasn't getting fixed. So in 2016, 17, I was basically bedridden.
Wow.
And it had gotten to the point where I couldn't think properly, like so much brain fog. I was full, like my body was so inflamed. I remember my eye feeling like it was about to throb out of my skull, and like so much pain that and bowel movements were all off, and like constipation 3 days, diarrhea 4 days, and it was just like ugh, and bloody noses, and just so all kinds of stuff that I'm like, I don't even know, like maybe I'm just supposed to like die, you know? And I had 2 kids, and I was just like, shit, like what kind of reality is this? And I had put the documentary on hold too, because I was like, man, like this is helping me, but it's not fixing.
Mm.
So I went to India on a small video shoot actually, because the movie started taking me everywhere.
Mm.
And on that trip, because I'm an entrepreneur, I had shut down most of my companies at the time, and I had something that was making enough money for the family, but it wasn't anything big or spectacular at the time because I was like so sick. I actually had to shut so much stuff down. And I pivoted my company to an e-commerce company because I couldn't be like the face or the documentary maker or like anything like that anymore. And I pivoted to e-com because I didn't need me involved so much and create systems for this to work.
I remember the time
So I went.
I was engaging with you about then you were telling me about the successes that you were doing with ecom and the focus on
Mhm,
products and so forth. So that was
yeah.
a temporary pivot as you adjusted, as you
Mhm.
healed yourself going to India. What did you
Yeah, I
determine?
went to India and I took a genetic test actually at an entrepreneurial event.
Hmm.
There's an organization called EO, Entrepreneurs Organization. I've been part of it for like 9 years, and it took me to a trip in India. And one of the startups there was a company that does genetic testing for disease, but it also shows you your epigenetic profile or how likely that gene is expressed.
Wow.
And I was like, whoa, that's crazy. I would love to take a test like that. So the results came back January 2018. I'll never forget it. And the woman's going through my gene analysis. It's like heart disease, 1.4x likely to get it. And I was like, oh, of course. Well, that runs in my family. It's a family history. Diabetes, same thing, family history. Thyroid, 1.2x, same thing, family history.
Hmm.
And she's going down, blah, 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 and she finds celiac disease. And it said 5.6x likely expressed.
Wow.
5 times more than the 1.2x of heart disease and diabetes and things like that. And I was like, what's celiac disease? I was
Right.
like, what the heck? And she's like, well, it's an extreme tolerance to gluten. And I was like, gluten. Okay, tell me more. You know,
Mm.
white
Interesting.
bread, pasta, and not that I ate a lot of it. Pizza, it just comes in everything.
Yes. It's also in
And I
Indian
had,
food too, like like when you have
yeah,
like chapati and things of
roti.
that sort that are Indian
Mm-hmm,
roti. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's in Indian food. It's in every cuisine. You know, soy sauce has, guess what, gluten in it. You would never think. So here I was thinking like I'm eating sushi, I'm getting healthy. It's like, no, I'm killing myself. I was
Right.
actually quite literally killing myself.
Mm.
And I just thought I was living a healthy, clean, eating clean lifestyle. And, you know, I eat a slice of pizza every now and then, but it would fucking throw me off, you know, to
Yeah.
be honest with you. And it would send me into this dark loop of migraines and just, it was horrible. Backaches and stomach aches and twisting and turning. And oh man, it was just like, didn't know what to expect when. And when this person told me this, the doctor told me this on the phone, I was like, oh my God, what
It all made
the
sense.
F? It all made sense.
Yeah.
I stopped eating gluten and I started to work with an Ayurvedic practitioner really more directly one on one.
Hmm.
I was like, I got to get healthy. I gotta, now that I know what it is. And you know what, man? Like, I got to tell you, I had doctors tell me over that period of 8 or 9 years, I was trying to figure out what was wrong with me, that there was no way I was allergic to gluten. They said there was no way. They refused to actually give me gluten tests, some of them. They said, no, you don't need a gluten test. There's no way. There's no way you're allergic. My allergist said there's no way you're allergic to
Yeah.
gluten.
Wow.
And
And
rheumatologist, I even had a surgery done, dude, because I thought that was the problem. I had a deviated septum surgery because they're like, oh, you can't breathe. Let's just cut this piece out. And guess what? It didn't fix the problem.
Wow. What the question was it?
Mm-hmm.
Is it gluten in this country, or is it also gluten? Like when I go to India, I can have some gluten, and I was traveling the Caribbean, it was fine. Parts of Europe too, but when it's like
Mm-hmm.
the stuff in this country, I can't have. It messes me
Yeah.
up.
So there's two different things. There's celiac and there's gluten intolerance.
Hmm.
Gluten intolerance is a very common thing in the West because of the type of wheat that we use. It's just not good for the gut. It just doesn't create a healthy gut environment because
It's
of
GMO,
the way
GMO.
it's GMO, and yeah, it's processed, and it's highly processed. And so in our country, we don't have the purest wheat, or in that form, and white bread and stuff, and all, just the way we treat our bodies, and so it comes in everything. Literally, almost every food has gluten in it, and so it was just really bad for your gut in general. And so I have celiac, and the celiac is a genetic thing. So the genes don't just treat it as an intolerance; it thinks of it as an unknown thing, so it starts attacking it and doesn't know what to do with it. Doesn't know how to handle it because it just thinks of it as like a fight or flight thing. It's just like, I don't know what to do. It's starting to kill everything and blow everything up, and we don't know what to do.
Wow.
And so celiac is actually called the silent killer because it starts leading to many other diseases like heart disease, like thyroid, like diabetes.
Yeah.
And it starts leading to other diseases like musculoskeletal MS type diseases. It starts leading to nerve damage. It starts leading to um, autism. It could lead to what was the one that I was Bell's palsy.
Yeah. Wow. So
My eye wouldn't move to the left anymore. When you would see pictures of me, you would see me smiling only on this side of my mouth, and this side would be closed. And I'm like, what the hell is going wrong with me? Like, I don't
yeah, that's
understand. Like,
that's
and
crazy.
it
Wow. Yeah.
and it was slow over time, like year after year, another thing, another thing, another thing. And I'm like, is this what it's like to get old? Like, it's like. And then, like I said, I worked with the Ayurvedic practitioner, and Ayurveda is so good with the gut and disease management in general,
Inflammation and
and
also
and
toxins on the
mhm,
body. Yeah.
getting rid of the toxins in the body and getting rid of all this hard stuff that accumulated on the left side of my body.
Hmm.
So from 2018 through 2021, I really, really focused hardcore on my health. I was already working out, but I like doubled it up. I was already eating healthy, but I doubled down, got rid of gluten. And with my Ayurvedic practitioner, I started reducing other foods that were causing my, what they call in Ayurveda, pitta, or fire energy, and water energy elements, I should say. It was that was out of balance
Hmm.
because of all the inflammation. So we had to bring that down. And my vata energy, which is ether and air, was really high. A lot of anxiety and stress. That well. So how do we bring these elements down and increase more groundedness? Get rid of the fire. Get rid of these kind of things that are causing you to be out of balance. So we removed a lot of these foods, implemented herbs, different diet protocols at different times, depending on what I was feeling and what was going on. Herbs, and they have detox retreats too, and these detox retreats are absolutely amazing. Actually, that's where I got my start in 2013 when I went to go film my first interview in 2013. Um, I went on that detox retreat, and I remember feeling like, wow, this is really good. There's something to this. And then I would continue them once a year ish because whenever I'd feel like my head was off or like I couldn't breathe properly, I'd go to these retreats and feel good for like a month, and then I would come back and then back to that dark cycle again.
And that would probably
And
the wheat was probably part of it. Like gluten was probably part of come back and
oh,
having those
100%.
foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at those retreats, at the detox retreats and rejuvenation retreats, there's no gluten.
Yeah.
So I felt so good when I come back, like, oh my God, like I feel like, and then back down the hole. So I remember sitting there in June-ish of 2021, and I got this hit in my meditation that I was happier, healthier, more abundant in my life with my relationship with my kids and my wife and my business, that I was just like, wow, I'm happier, stronger, smarter than I've ever felt in my life.
Mm.
In my life, quite
Mm.
honestly, that I could personally remember.
Mm.
And I was like, Ayurveda saved my life. And at this point, I put the documentary aside for almost 3 years,
Right.
4 years. And I was like, I'm done with this. And then something hit me. I was like, nah, you're not done with this. You're supposed to do this movie now, because you had the realization that Ayurveda saved your life. And you went through the last 8 years of filming these experts for a reason. And you just needed a pause in between to get healthy and get back to, your normal way of life.
Awesome.
And so from 2021 to 2023, we finished the film.
Amazing.
And
Amazing.
we really put some nice tightness around it.
And it's been winning
And
awards at like 7 film festivals. It's like rocking it. Huh?
we're up to 9 now film
Wow.
festivals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And so we released it in July of 2023, and it's been received so amazingly. And I'm just so blessed and grateful to be sharing wisdom that can quite literally change the world. It wasn't just not about my story of healing myself, but the people I witnessed along my journey, that I would hear their testimonials. And it's in the movie as well. It's like stage 4 cancer, thyroid, diabetes. I'm like, this works.
Ancient
This is the
wisdom.
proof. The people are the proof that I'm meeting. And I was like, I have to do this as a service to the world. Like, there's some wisdom here. I have to put this into a movie. And so it's been such a beautiful experience doing that and sharing with the world. And, I think Ayurveda provides a ray of hope for our medical system, our well-being as a community and society, as human beings, as a culture, and it provides many solutions that the Western system cannot. Like, I'll tell you an example. The Western medical system is great with diagnosis sometimes. Like, I found out I had celiac through a genetic test. That's not an Ayurvedic thing. If you get a heart attack, you have a stroke, you get hit by a bus, go to the emergency room, go to a trauma center. Don't go find an Ayurvedic practitioner during that time. That's the time you need acute care. So Western medical system is very good in its certain capacity.
Especially
But when it
measuring
comes to
data.
these,
It's measuring data, like for example, like calcium score and things of that sort, and diabetes,
yeah,
A1C levels. That's useful. And then
hmm
going to source now, going to one of these centers.
where's this coming from? Yeah, exactly. And oftentimes, a lot of these things are a combination of stress, the way the mind is negatively imprinting things into us, and then also what we're putting in through our mouth and through our environment and through our five senses. Are you watching horror movies and scary movies every day where you're like freaked out and stressed and you're like sweating bullets and eating hot chilies and drinking alcohol and drinking coffee and like all of that, everything, the music you're listening to, like all of that plays into this field, this human body experience. And that's what Ayurveda teaches. And one of the first things they say is in Ayurveda is only treat unhappiness.
Wow. I love
Only
that.
treat unhappiness.
Mm.
That's where you start. So if you have a physical element, well, where's this coming from? Oh, your relationship is strained. Oh, your finances are strained. Oh, this is you stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and drinking coffee and watching movies and binge watching stuff. Like, okay, now we're getting somewhere. Tell me
Mm.
more. So in the Western medical system, again, they see you for 15 minutes, they prescribe you something, and they're out the door.
Right.
Ayurveda, they're talking to you for an hour to an hour and a half.
Yeah.
They're trying to find, where is this going on? What's happening in the mind and the body and the spirit as a whole, as a human being? And in the West, we've kind of taken it and say, oh, you're hurting here? Well, let's just put something here. It's not being caused by anything else. You have a stomach ache? Here's some Pepto-Bismol. You have a skin rash? Well, here's some skin rash medication.
I
But you're
remember.
not telling me to stop eating gluten, right? You're
Right.
not. So now we're getting to the wisdom with Ayurveda of like all these lifestyle diseases as well. It's like we don't know where this is coming from.
I'm,
We don't know why
I'm,
this is caused.
I remember post 9/11 going into a bit of a depression, seeing my general practitioner doctor, and being prescribed Prozac. Right.
Hmm.
And I had that prescription on my wall for months or for years, injuries sitting in my condo there, looking at it, and I found other alternatives: fish oil, inflammation, cutting out the foods that were causing that in myself. And then that experience I had in being depressed or whatnot, post 9/11 diminished over
Mm-hmm.
time, like inflammation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think doctors easily prescribe things, and also people too, consumers too. They watch TV and you see commercials, and the small print, it's spoken like 50 words a second, right? At the end of it may cause
Mm-hmm.
death,
Mm-hmm.
diarrhea, and all of that. People also get hypnotized to like try out different things too that may not serve versus going to source and meditating and like all the points you mentioned, brother.
Mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been such an incredible journey, and I was like, I have to share this with people. Like this wisdom can really enhance our way of living. And so that's the journey I'm on, and I've had great successes, in many of my businesses. And that's what I'm realizing is like I wasn't really following what I wanted to do when I was younger. I got into the business world because I wanted to make more movies and music. And then it turned into making more money, more money, more money, pleasing more people, showing off, ego. And that's when we get derailed.
Yeah.
That's when we go off our channels, when we're not following like our true, what do we want to really do? And some people are meant to run $100 million companies, and that's their dharma, right? That's their journey, that's their purpose. And I was like, man, I took this off skew somewhere. Like I'm supposed to be doing this. And so that is actually a piece of Ayurveda too, where it's if you don't love and enjoy what you do, you're creating disease in your body.
If you can go back in time and talk to the, let's say, 19-year-old version of yourself, or perhaps like go to the future and talk to your son as he like turns 19, right? That becoming an adult. What's
Hmm.
one piece of advice you'd offer?
That's a good question. Don't be scared of anything and don't listen to what others have to think about you.
Mm,
And just do what comes from, just keep honoring this, like, because the truth is always within you, not it's not in the external world.
mm,
The truth is inside of you. And like I am here to actually support that in my children because I didn't grow up in that environment. It was I did whatever my parents told me, and
mm,
I became the person that they wanted me to become. Um, and I think that's the big thing is like your parents will guide you, but they can't tell you what to do.
right.
Yeah, and I'm really embodying that in my children's life. Is yeah, go explore, just listen to this and follow this, and as long as you do that, everything else will be okay. You
Mm,
know, and trust yourself.
yeah.
And because I think that advice, like it just took me off path where I had to be somebody that I didn't want to be, and I think that's what a lot of us do. We hide things, we pretend like things don't exist when it really bothers us, and we push it away with alcohol or TV or gambling or whatever we decide to do with it. And sometimes it comes in good forms, like oh, you just read all day or you do art all day, but you're still got this thing going on in the back, right?
Yeah. Well, it was like, let me ask you a question. Was it helpful because you're good at making money, right? And as far
Mm-hmm.
as sales, and it's my experience of you, like I learned so much about entrepreneurship over the course of the year that we worked together. Back 23, 24, I learned a tremendous amount. And
Mm-hmm.
it's that
Mm-hmm.
there's a certain mindset that goes with like understanding like how to communicate, how to connect, how to engage, how to speak confidence too with it as well. That goes with it.
Mm.
Um, do you feel that your evolution as far as health choices you've made in recent years would that have been possible if you hadn't been financially like steadfast and strong?
Um, yeah, I think so. I think health was one of my biggest barriers to my growth and evolution.
Hmm.
And it was only once I got the reins of my health under control that I was able to think clearer to make better decisions.
Mm, mm,
And there's this thing in Ayurveda called Pragya Parad.
mm,
Pragya Parad in Ayurveda is the mistake of the intellect. And the intellect makes mistakes. And there's nothing wrong with it. It makes mistakes. It's just the intellect. That's what its function. Its function is trying to figure out what's the right solution and how to do it the best. So the solution, the meaning of it, Pragya Parad, is mistake of the intellect. And everyone does this in different ways. An example would be, it's 11 o'clock at night, you're driving along the highway, you see the Golden Arches, and you're like, I didn't eat dinner, I'm hungry. Pull over, drive up, you order a bunch of food, supersize it, big ass drink, big fries, big burgers, and you're just like, scarf it all down. And then you're sitting there like 2 hours later, like, man, that sucks. I'm never going to eat that again. But then there you are the next time, 11 o'clock, driving down the road. You see the Golden Arches, and you pull right in, and you're like, man, and you do it anyway. The mistake of the intellect is that we've formed a pattern that we're just going to do this. And that's the mistake. And we all do it in our own ways, in certain ways. It's these patterns we develop that we're just like, we ignore the truth. And I think that's the most important thing to learn is, discernment of decisions and understanding how am I doing this to myself also? And so your question, I believe, going back to the question at hand, was, how does this, sorry, what was the exact question so I can sum it up? And
I just, the journey you're on, success you built, and then the choices you made afterwards as well also.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
being
yeah.
able
So
to,
now,
being able to discern that. And I want to add to your point too, that we're being hypnotized by society, right? You see something in sales and marketing, you see something 7 to 14 times, like the Golden Arches, you're inclined to buy. You see commercial on TV or product placements.
of course.
And that's a gift that I think you and I have been given in understanding marketing and sales, the nature of how those things work, and to be able to discern that is invaluable because we're being hypnotized, and the Golden Arches
Absolutely.
and the music
It's
and the
coming in
feel.
from a million directions all at once.
Right. And I love what you said too
Yeah.
about discerning, going within, whether it's meditating or resetting the whole body system, right? That's a big part of Ayurveda, resetting it. And
Yeah.
that's extraordinary.
Meditation is the first thing I did that really brought me clarity to get my health better. It was through meditation. I was like, okay, well, focus on the health, then the mind will get clearer, then everything else will take care of itself. And that is exactly what happened. So,
What are some rituals or practices you embrace on a daily basis to stay consistent,
yeah,
stay aligned, brother? What do you
I
got?
love these. I love these. I call them hacks, right? And they're like, to some extent, Ayurveda was the people who practiced it were the original biohackers, where they would wake up in the morning and try to catch the morning sun, the first sun in the morning. And I know it's hard for a lot of people to wake up between 5 and 7, but that really will help. Go for a little walk in the morning. Wake up right before sunrise and get outside and get the first like hour to two of sun if you can, if you have the time and capacity. Do that. It'll change the whole game. And then the next one is also in the morning before you do that is scraping your tongue. So when you look at your tongue, you might see a white film on it. A little bit of white film is completely normal. When you wake up in the morning, you might notice a thicker amount of that. And many people, what they do in the West is they just brush it and they brush their tongue. But that is actually supposed to exit your body. It's not supposed to go back into your body. So when you brush your tongue, you're actually pushing it back into your tongue. And maybe some of it gets off into the brush, but you're still putting it all over your mouth and you're just spreading it. So tongue scraping and oil pulling are two things that you can incorporate into your morning ritual. That the first thing you do when you wake up is stick out your tongue. You see that, you scrape it off, get rid of it, flush it down the sink. It's gone. Get rid of it. Because if you don't, it actually goes back into your digestive tract. That is toxic material. That is undigested stuff that comes off of your body, that comes out of your gut, quite literally. This is the gateway to your gut. When you put food on your tongue, it starts creating the enzymes in your digestive process to break down the food. How genius is that, right? So we just clean it off. It revitalizes the organs, and then you do some oil pulling, and you pull the rest of the toxins out, and you'll notice a massive difference.
Wow.
And I'll just add one more here. The first one is waking up early, getting the morning sun. The second one is tongue scraping and oil pulling. And the third one here is drinking and sipping warm/hot water throughout the day.
Hmm.
In the West, we love it. Everywhere you go, every restaurant you sit down, big tall glass of ice water. Every restaurant. There isn't one restaurant, I don't think, in America that will not pour you a tall glass of ice
Ice
water.
water, right?
Yeah. And what you're doing by drinking ice water is actually killing your digestive power.
Hmm.
In Ayurveda, they say the digestion has something called Agni in it. Agni means fire. And you need that fire to break down the food, hydrochloric acid. You need things like that. And so you need that. And water, actually, cold water dampens that. So they suggest to drink warm water or hot water throughout the day so that you're keeping your digestion flowing and everything is just moving and you got the energy to break down that food.
Is that with
But
lemon
they
or
also
tea,
say
or in any ways of doing that?
lemon, water, herbal tea is usually the best, of course, so that is the three things that you can sip on. But water is just as good. It's amazing. And to eat your biggest meal at lunchtime also, because guess what? The sun is at its highest peak. Your body's producing the most hydrochloric acid, and now your body has enough digestive power to break down a pretty big meal and eat a lighter dinner. So those are the hacks, very basic hacks
Yes.
that just incorporate these things, live in rhythm with nature, and you will be abundant in life.
I love it,
And
brother. Yeah.
yeah, that's really the key, the basics of Ayurveda. There's so much more depth to it.
So when I connect with you and your wife 10 years ago, I started doing a lot of that as far as the oil pulling. I even got an
Mm-hmm.
acupuncture mat too, as well. Also, I can wake up and I'll lay on the mat until it's painful enough where I have to get up and I go outside and get sunlight in my eyes. So just being in your company, your presence over the years, like, way back, I've been doing that. I mentioned this before too, that sometimes when we make decisions, choices, poor choices, those things atrophy over time. They compound in our
Mm-hmm.
bodies, create a lot of toxins, and making a couple of good choices, like what you just shared just now, over time, it'll compound, and not just your teeth, but your gut, which is the core of Ayurveda. We'll thank you for.
Mm-hmm.
It's powerful, man.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any other words of wisdom you'd offer our audience?
Definitely check out the movie. Recently, I was on stage with Deepak Chopra at a film festival, and this was really good for me to hear. One of the panelists, or the panel host, said, "Hey, if someone's sick, words of advice on Ayurveda or anything you want to share on Ayurveda, where would you send them?" And I said, um, I forgot. Well, I think they asked Deepak first, and he said, "I would send them to the movie."
The naturallaw.com.
And if you want, and thenaturallaw.com, and if you want to understand what, it's not just if you're sick or diseased, it's for anything. If you think you're at this state, Ayurveda can reach you into peak performance. They could bring you and biohack you to even better performance than where you are. So it's powerful for those that are really, really weak and sick. It's powerful for those that are really, really optimal in health. And
Amazing.
it's a beautiful medicine. It's a beautiful science.
Amazing. Really,
Mm-hmm.
lot of wisdom here. Thank you, brother, for the interview today. For our
Yeah,
audience
thank
out there,
you.
check out thenaturallaw.com, access the movie, the documentary. You won't regret it. Embrace some aspects of Ayurveda. It'll change your life. It's definitely it's helped me a lot. And I see my family too when they go to India. They'll go for a week or two or a month at one of these retreat
Mm-hmm.
centers. They come back completely transformed. My mom, my aunts and uncles, and just it's powerful. It's a great reset for ourselves, and
Mm-hmm.
it's accessible. So Amish has made this completely accessible through his
Mm-hmm.
resources, through his businesses, and especially the documentaries. So check it out. This podcast and this summary of this podcast can be accessed at rulesforsuccess.com. We'll do a mind map too there as well. So kind of summarizing all the points that Amish said, as well as how to contact him. So rulesforsuccess.com. Amish, thank you again from the bottom of my heart. It's been
Yeah,
a
thank you.
pleasure knowing you all these years and modeling you, and even from this conversation to the things that I'm going to take on and take on my life as well. Also, so I appreciate that. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Jess.